Welcome to episode number 115 of the Marine Layer podcast. It's our season predictions episode. We'll run through some season totals for the Mariners upcoming here in 2024. And a great way to cap off the offseason, John Stanton had some comments on local television this week that we'll dive into.
This show is brought to you by our friends over at Pagach's Pub 85. That's over in Kirkland. Opening day is here, guys. By the time you listen to this, it is opening day, or maybe it's a little bit after. So you need a place to go watch Mariners games that count. So head over there and you can have an awesome time when you do. You'll hang out with your friends, play some pool, play some darts. You can watch a bunch of different games. There's still March Madness going. There's over 20 TVs there. And make sure to get there during happy hour. You can get some great drink specials. It's $3 domestic beers, $4 Manny's Blue Moons, $4 Mac and Jacks, $4 Wells, and $4 house wines. Those happy hour specials are Monday through Friday from 2 to 6 p.m. So hey, get there early for happy hour. Stay and watch the Mariners. You're going to have yourself a great time. That's over at Pagach's Pub 85 in Kirkland. And your reminder before we start the show, make sure to download our episodes. Leave us a 5-star review if you're listening. That helps us out a ton. Like, comment, subscribe on YouTube. You see that subscribe button. You want to click it. I know you do if you're watching. So just click it. And then follow us on social media too. We're on Instagram, TikTok, Twitter, and YouTube Shorts at Marine Layer Pod.
Let's get it rolling. And we welcome you to this episode of the Marine Layer podcast, part of the Just Baseball Podcast Network, recording here on Tuesday evening, March 26th, a little less than 48 hours to opening day. And Lyle thought, hey, new Major League Baseball season, I'm going to have a new sound as well. Welcome to the Sure Mic Club, dog. You sound good.
Oh, I'm glad I sound good. I was almost going to save that for Speak Your Mind, but yeah, so we started to get a couple comments when we did an Instagram live the other day that, oh, something sounds funny with your mic. And I figured it was just a setting that I didn't set right. And then we started to record another episode or two. And I was like, maybe there's something wrong here, which didn't make a whole lot of sense because I haven't had that old mic that long. It's been probably, it's been like a year and 4 months, but I guess it wore out one. And you know what? Now we sound uniform because we have the same mic.
That's good. It's a good mic. I like it. It's a nice and sturdy.
It's a very good mic. And we talked about at some point I was going to upgrade to get the same mic you had because it's always nice when you can sound uniform and have the same equipment. So it worked out. I didn't think I was going to do it today, but you know what? The sooner the better because with opening day starting, what better time? And now, like I said, we sound exactly the same. I will have to get a stand for this thing. I didn't realize that the mic came without a stand. My old one had a stand. So that will be coming in the coming days too. So yeah.
And now the goal for both of us is to sound more like Jason Churchill. He gets the crown for best sound quality. I was listening to my car. I mean, you get every level of bass in Jason Churchill's voice when he speaks. Just really good. So shout out to him. He's got the full setup there.
Yeah,
but
he's done it a long time, so
yeah,
it makes sense.
Well, Lyle, it's a great way to end the offseason that John Stanton does a sit down with friend of the podcast, Paul Sylvie on King 5 this week. He had some things to say. You did a social post today. You go check it out on our Instagram and Instagram, TikTok, YouTube Shorts, wherever you want to get that. If you have missed it, it'll be 48 hours after when this episode comes out on opening day. But if you somehow missed it, go back on our page. Lyle had a really good reaction to that and some of the stuff John Stanton talked about this week. What stood out to you the most?
Before I even get into this, let's preface this here. On our little timer, it says we've been recording for 3 minutes and 54 seconds so far. Let's cap this around the 10 to 12 minute mark, because if you let me, I could go for a long time about this. So I'm not going to do that. We have season predictions to get to. It's supposed to be a happy time. When you guys are listening to this, it's opening day. It should be fun. I want it to be fun. We're the positive podcast too. But unfortunately, there are some things we have to talk about because the owner of our favorite baseball team finally spoke about everything that went on this offseason. And if anything stood out to me, TJ, there's a few things, but if I had to pick one, it's the same thing that everybody's talking about. John Stanton took it upon himself to throw Jerry Dipoto and Justin Hollander under the bus, saying baseball decisions, they're made by them, not me. It's their decisions, what they do. I usually back them up, but it's their decisions. That's what stood out to me because Jerry Dipoto and Justin Hollander made decisions based off the payroll budget that they were given and the premises they were given by John Stanton himself. And then he sits on public television saying, no, it wasn't my decision. No, it was. It was your decision. So don't act like it wasn't.
So here's where I'm going to start on this. So you're right. He was essentially passing the buck off to Justin Hollander and Jerry Dipoto. Yes, they do make the baseball decisions. They get paid a lot of money to make very important baseball decisions. I hated the framing of how he made it sound like it was he essentially framed it as their choice to cut payroll in the offseason and have these bad optic trades. Like the Jared Kelenic trade, which was objectively the low point of the offseason, made it sound like, well, yeah, it was their decision to cut payroll, right? And with no mention of like, well, they had to cut payroll because the team needed to get better without a payroll increase. The payroll is about the same as it was last year. Right now, it'll probably go a little bit above what it was last season. As the season takes its course, they call some guys up. They'll trade for somebody, sign for somebody. It'll go above that mark. But I didn't like how that sounded. What else, man? I didn't like how he almost made it sound that like they could have made no baseball decisions. The payroll would have stayed the same and he would have been like, okay. That's kind of the imprint I got because of the baseball moves were their decision. If they made no baseball moves, then it would be like, well, I trust them. They're the baseball people, but the payroll stays the same regardless. I will add one last note. Remember that John Stanton alone does not control the payroll. He is on a board of people who make the financial decisions for the Mariners. Mm-hmm. So everything we say here today on this podcast, in this 10-minute window that Lyle has so graciously given us to talk about this subject, is not only directed at John Stanton, it is directed at the Mariners ownership group, mm-hmm. because they all have a say in what happens with this team. The point Jason Churchill brought up on Wednesday I'm getting my days mixed up because we're releasing on different days this week. On Tuesday's episode, if you missed it, go back and listen to it. Jason's the best. He mentioned, listen, like we all know that Scott Servais and Jerry Dipoto are lame duck for now the third time in their tenure. 3 times now they've entered a season without a contract for the next season. And he's like, maybe they just don't like this. 3 times in 4 years that Jerry Dipoto's offseason plans have gone up in flames because ownership doesn't want to spend. Who doesn't want to be there with that? And, when you get to put a face to it and you hear some comments like this, you're like, yeah, I kind of get it.
Here's what I'd say to that. If the Yankees have another disappointing season and finally, after all these years, they finally decide, like it's time to move on from Brian Cashman and they have to find somebody else, is Jerry not going to get an interview for that if the Mariners make the playoffs again this year? If they have 4 straight 88-plus win seasons and 3 out of 4 90-win seasons with essentially, I don't want to say no payroll budget, but a very, very limited one, are there not going to be teams around the league that look at that and say, well, what can this guy do with actual money to spend? I'd say the same thing about the Padres if AJ Preller gets fired. There's another.
And a clarification to that, we won't know if Jerry Dipoto will be 4 straight seasons of 88 wins because there's no chance he makes it to the end of the season without a contract, without definitively knowing whether he's going to be here next year. Like either Jerry Dipoto is gone by August, right? Or yeah. Well, if he does not have a contract, there's no way Jerry Dipoto makes it from Thursday to the last day of September without a contract for next season, or he's gone before that. There's no way that happens. No chance.
Is there no like free agency hits, so to speak?
Not with executives, not with coaches, not with executives. If he does not have a contract signed by like August 1st, I think that'd be pretty telling. Yeah. Of either how he thinks or what the ownership thinks. Because we don't know the terms of the contract. We don't know if he's getting lowballed. We don't know if he's asking for more. We don't know that. But it makes sense, right? If he doesn't want to go, he might just say make up an excuse to fire me or something like that. Something like that. But there's no way he makes it to September or August without guarantees for next season. Because either he knows his market is hot elsewhere with more resources, or he decides to sign back with Seattle. Those are the options. There's no I'm going to hit free agency and test it out. He's not a player. He doesn't do that. Either you're signed or you're not.
All right. So, I mean, and usually around early September mark is when we've seen him and Scott get these extensions. So maybe it would be around then, and we'll see how the season's playing out by that point. We would certainly hope they're right in it. But again, if you're John Stanton and you want to keep these guys around, these comments aren't helping. You just heard what Churchill said on Tuesday's episode. He said, Jerry Dipoto is the best general manager the Mariners have ever had. Honestly, I agree with him. And I think a lot of you should too, because again, it was kind of like he was talking about Pat Gillick might have had the 116 win season and a lot of success when he was here, but he sold out to win big in a couple of different seasons, like a couple different times. Jerry hasn't done that. Like, Jerry's put a sustainable product on the field with not a whole lot of money to work with. So if you're John Stanton, and you want to keep Dipoto around, I don't know how you think deflecting blame onto those guys is a good idea. And also, maybe my biggest problem with this whole thing is if you're not going to spend the money, you yourself need to take accountability for that. If you don't want to hurt profits or even risk profits, then sure, then that's your answer. But he wouldn't say that. He didn't say that in the interview. Instead, he's deflecting blame. If you don't want to spend money, I think most people know at this point, you can tell me if I'm wrong, I think most Mariners fans know at this point that John Stanton plays a big factor, if not he's not the entire factor because there's an ownership group, but he plays a big factor into why the Mariners are not spending money. So I think people know it's not, the front office is choosing to go this route. No, they're forced to go this route. So if you're Stanton and that's your philosophy, people aren't going to like it, but at least be honest about it. That's my whole thing. Because the way he conducted that interview made it seem like he was trying to outsmart a lot of fans and say, oh, well, actually, we're doing this. But I think a lot of fans know that look, you chose not to spend money.
And I think that's the biggest problem with this whole interview. Like you just said it, trying to outsmart people. We're not stupid. People can read between the lines of what stuff like this means. And either you give legitimate reason, hey, we're not doing well financially. We needed to keep payroll where it was, or we fully intend when we get our TV situation worked out that we are going to raise our payroll to a competitive edge. That's what people want to hear for someone who said, I want to get as many bites at the World Series as we possibly can. You know, a pretty good way to do that, winning the division. You know what the Mariners haven't done? You know the Mariners have not won a division, right? Under this ownership group, they've not won a division since 2001. Right. Mm-hmm. That's probably the best way to get so many bites at the apple to potentially win a World Series. And if you listen to John Stanton speak, he's like, hey, I want to have a very competitive team to get into the playoffs as often as we can so we can give ourselves all these chances to make it to the World Series. Well, the problem is the current allocation is not quite allowing that. But anyways, back to the whole smarter point. I'm going to try not to piss anyone off here, but it's rich people aren't relatable at all, really, for the rest of us, the 99.9% of us. We're not like John Stanton. None of us will ever live a life like John Stanton does. He's incredibly successful in his field to do all this stuff. But just because you've made it like this doesn't mean that it's I got this for you guys. Just take my word for it. And it's no, I think most of us can see how the cookie is made, right? And it's frustrating.
Honestly, you asked me what stood out to me the most about this interview, and it is what he said about Jerry and Justin, and that's what everybody's talking about. What really disgruntled me the most in this interview is probably when he said, I was just as frustrated and disappointed as all of the players with the results during game 162 out on that field, knowing we were not going to the postseason. Here's my problem with that. We heard players and how frustrated they were about not making the playoffs last year. You saw this entire group and in this entire core of players, the leaders of this team, work their tail off to have a better 2024. And we saw it in spring training. They were motivated. They were excited. You could tell all the work all these guys put in. The players took action. Jerry Dipoto and Justin Hollander took action. They were unhappy. They went out and, despite essentially having their hands tied, went out and made a roster that is very competitive in 2024. Maybe the best roster they've assembled. They did that with essentially no budget to work with. They deserve a ton of props, like we've talked about. Scott Service was not happy with how the season ended. He went out and met with all of his players to make amends and get on the same page with all the leaders of his team. He's traveling around the country all offseason, goes to the DR to talk to Luis Castillo. He took matters into his own hands. There was no action from John Stanton. Like, actions speak louder than words here. You say you're frustrated and disappointed. What you can do yourself to help this team is give the front office all the resources they need to win. And that includes money. Again, everybody else went above and beyond and did their part. The players, front office, Scott Service and the coaching staff, everybody. What irks me is hearing Stanton say, I was super frustrated and disappointed, but you have control of the somewhat of the outcome of this team and the direction of this team, but you didn't take anything into your own hands and take action. It was just a lot of words. That's where I had my issue.
So the action was the problem, and then there's no explanation for that. No public explanation. Like he could have told Paul Sylvie, listen, guys, we're like, they did talk about the roots. They did talk about Root Sports, by the way. No one's talking about that part of the conversation, but they did in fact talk about Root Sports, and he threw out the number, when we bought it, 3.3 million. And when, as it currently sits, it's like 1.2 million cable subscribers with people unsubscribing every day. And as we've talked about here on this podcast, a very famous clip of ours where we said, well, that doesn't really matter. It sounds like a you problem rather than an us problem because we didn't purchase Root Sports. So in conclusion of all this, because I know we've zoomed right past that artificial timer you set, I don't think most fan bases like their ownership in any sport. Could you name one? Like one fan base that likes their owners?
The Mets.
Do they like Steve Cohen?
Spends
Do they
a lot
all
of
like
money.
Steve Cohen? Do they actually all like Steve Cohen? Just because you spend money, it actually doesn't make you a good owner.
No.
It gives good indication, but
okay.
I'd say he has a higher approval rating than John Stanton does, but
how about the Dodgers and Mark Walter? Who could hate that guy after? See, now that's a team that took action. I mean, the Dodgers are the model standard in baseball, of course, but you know what? They lost in the first round again last year. They had a roster that on paper was nowhere near as good as some of the rosters they've had in the past. As a result, despite having a good regular season, a very good one, they lost in the first round. They said, we're not doing that again. They went out and signed the best player on the planet, maybe the best player of all time in Shohei, and they went and got Yoshinobu Yamamoto for $300 million. They took action. Nobody's saying John Stanton had to go spend $1 billion, but there were guys out there in free agency that absolutely would have helped this team, and they opted not to spend any money. So anyway, yes, there are owners I think that are liked. It's not a lot, but some. No?
It's pretty low. It's a pretty small number. Probably a minuscule number. And it all boils back to my point that there is nothing you and I can relate to a billionaire owner in any sport of anything. There's no relation at all. And that doesn't help. People feel like they like the players a lot because they can relate to them. That's why people love college athletics, because you can actually relate to the athletes. Because you went to college, I went to college. A lot of these people went to college, and they go watch a college sporting event. I relate to that guy. I used to be a college player. I used to be a college student. But you and I are never going to be billionaires. You can go to bed tonight knowing that you and I will never have that much money ever in our life. So there's no relational aspect to that. And sure, that means it could be a little bit harder to actually get people over to your side. But when the actions don't give you any more reason to, man, it just leaves a bad taste in everyone's mouth. And here we are sitting still talking about payroll. The opening day is on fucking Thursday, and we are still talking about payroll. God damn it.
Let me say this too. I didn't want to do this. I really didn't want to sit here and have this conversation. We know we had to because it's in the news. People are talking about it. We talked about it on social media. That's why we're sitting here talking about it. But again, and you keep saying 2 days from opening day. When we're recording this, we're 2 days from opening day. Everybody listening, it's opening day. I want the vibes to be high. You should want the vibes to be high. This team is exciting. I don't want that to be buried. This is a very good roster with an elite pitching staff, a lineup that's much improved, and this team can go out and have a great year. If you took anything out of this conversation, let me make that abundantly clear. This is a very good team, and you should be excited. I'm excited. When I'm at opening day on Thursday, I'm going to be excited. But I hate that 2 days before we had to sit here and have this conversation again. Instead of just having all the vibes high going into opening day, we're sitting here talking about it. Which, yes, to your point, why are we still talking about payroll? We shouldn't have to.
And this isn't going to be the last media appearance for John Stanton. He every opening day will go on Brock and Salk and talk with them. So he'll be talking with them when this episode comes out on Thursday morning. So we'll see what he says then. But we'll find out. Oh, like I saw Paul Sylvie getting some comments of how he didn't rail on John Stanton enough. Like just a peek behind the curtain. That interview doesn't work if Paul Sylvie's not cooperating with John Stanton, because if we're gonna.
Yeah, no, and I was gonna say, like,
Yeah.
and to piggyback off you, King 5 and the Mariners have a partnership too.
Yeah.
Like, I don't want to sound like the whole snobby media people here, like, oh, TJ and I went to journalism school, this and that. But I just to like inform people, like as two people who work in journalism and or in media and know how it works. Like there are relationships here. I know it's easy for a lot of people on Twitter to just say, oh, we should have grilled him and he should have asked him all these hard hitting questions. King 5 and the Mariners have a partnership. Paul Sylvie does that. Like there's a real relationship that's absolutely burned there. So he can't do that. Not only would he not, he can't.
Yeah. Yeah. So that's why he didn't do that. And, unfortunately, not all the questions on Twitter get asked and answered. So there's that. Lyle mentions opening day. We're going to get to our season predictions here in a second. We have a lot of really good stuff. We have some props, individual props. We have some predictions for stat leaders, and then we have the Mariners overall win total. All that is exciting stuff. But Lyle mentioned he's going to go to opening day, and Lyle, because so Lyle's going to do some man on the street stuff on opening day on Thursday when you're listening to this. So if you're milling around the ballpark, go track him down. He's in the pen, his favorite place in the whole wide world. He's going to be hanging out. You can go hang out with Lyle. But Lyle, because the Red Sox are in town, no room in the press box. So what's Lyle going to do? Lyle is going to need tickets to opening day. What is Lyle going to do to get his tickets? He's going to go to Ticket Smarter to get his tickets. Do you need tickets for opening week of baseball? Not just opening day, the entire opening week of baseball. You should go to Ticket Smarter. Ticket Smarter has you covered with seats to more than 125,000 live events. Ticket Smarter is the smart choice when you need tickets for concerts, theater shows, and sporting events. Think smarter. Think Ticket Smarter. Go to ticketsmarter.com or the Ticket Smarter app and use our code Marine10 to get $10 off your purchase. That's code Marine10 for $10 off your next purchase only at Ticket Smarter. Let's get to our Mariners season predictions.
Yeah, I'm ready for it. And I will say just quickly before that, like, as you guys know, if you guys are at opening day, send us a message. Let us know you'll be there. We always love to meet up. Just wanted to get that out there. I don't know if I'll be in the pen all game. Actually, I know I won't be in the pen all game because I don't want to sit there during the game. But yeah, send us a message if you're going to be there. We always love to meet up.
Let's start. We'll go run through some individual props here. So I've picked out some totals from various sports books that we can find, and we'll give our thoughts over or under these numbers. Let's start with strikeouts. A couple of starting pitchers here have some strikeout totals that we'll go through. FanDuel has Luis Castillo at 195 and a half strikeouts for the 2024 season. Lyle, over or under?
If he's healthy, I feel like that should be an over. Guy struck out well over 200 batters last year. A 216, I believe, was the number. If he's going to be healthy and on the field, why shouldn't he strike out over 195 and a half? So for me, it's over.
Yeah, given he keeps his velo and then he throws 190 innings, this is an over.
Mm-hmm.
Like if he hits the 190 innings mark, which I have a really hard time thinking he's not going to hit 190 innings. So if he hits that mark, he's going to have over that. And to think about that, like his main strikeout pitch was, again, his fastball. But as Churchill said, like the changeup is such a feel pitch that it can come back if a guy is or really gets a grip on that. That kind of stuck in my head a little bit. So that's like, given the fact that Luis Castillo's main strikeout pitch is only his fastball, but if the field comes back on either his like to take another step forward, his slider or his changeup, pending a little bit of evolution for Luis Castillo, could make a better case to go over 195 and a half. So that seems like pretty much a safe. If he stays healthy, he starts 32 games, he's going to hit that number.
How confident are you in that, TJ? Confident enough?
Well,
we're doing the big. We're doing.
You're trying to bait me, aren't you? You're trying to bait me to say something that I'm not going to say again because I've gotten crap for an entire year for telling someone to bet a certain important something to many people here in this country that I'm going to say you probably shouldn't do. Probably shouldn't listen to me on your betting advice if you're going to bet that much.
So I was going to say, we're doing the big category first, your favorite category. And I say that because for any of you that were not listening a year ago, we did a prediction show at this time last year. And TJ said, Robbie Ray strikeouts, you should take your mortgage and put it on that. So it sounds like from what TJ's saying, the man's learned to be much more careful with his words.
Just a little bit more careful. I still really like that bet, though. He's thrown 95 with the splitter.
I mean, to be totally honest, if Robbie Ray had stayed healthy all year last year, he probably does hit it. It's just even more hilarious that, I mean, not hilarious for Robbie Ray. It sucks that he got injured. It beyond sucks, but it's hilarious for the sake of TJ that he was so confident in that. He made not even a full start. We have a friend that loves to rip on TJ, and he took a betting advice from him from listening to our show, and then he turned around and was furious with him.
And the worst part of the whole thing is he actually, he had an out logged, so that meant the bet counted. Yeah. If he had gotten hurt warming up in the bullpen, the bet would have voided.
Yeah. 3 1/3 innings.
Bad luck.
It is bad luck.
Bad luck and crappy for Robbie, but he's going to be back and he's going to be better than ever this year. Another guy John Stanton really liked. I will walk on water for Robbie Ray. So I'm sure John Stanton's going to be loving to see Robbie back down there in San Francisco.
Yeah. So how about George Kirby? His strikeout total is much lower than Luis's is. It's at 170.5. Where are you at on this one, over or under?
It's a harder one. I'm leaning over again. If he's healthy, he's going to go over this number. But, George isn't like a total strikeout pitcher. Like, he could just decide, I'm just going to pitch to a ton of contact and work really quickly and get a lot of quick outs and pitch really deep into games, but only get 7 strikeouts per 9. So I think if he hits if he's around a little bit over 8 strikeouts per 9 innings, which is not we love our percentages, but on an inning basis, 8 strikeouts per 9 would put him right around that number. And yeah, I would say probably over, but significantly less confident in this number because he was at 172 and 190 2/3 last year.
I actually went under for this for some of the reasons you were outlining. It's not to say George Kirby's not a great pitcher. He is a great pitcher. He's one of the best pitchers in baseball. But it's like we've started to talk about over the last few weeks. Does he even want to strike guys out? I don't say that in a bad way. Not that he doesn't want to get outs, but he may more want to pitch to contact to keep his pitch count low, and he works deeper into games. George Kirby works deep into games all the time. And if you strike more guys out, you are objectively throwing more pitches and getting your pitch count higher up there. Luis Castillo is the ace of this roster, at least for now he is. But he doesn't work deep into games as often or quite the way that George Kirby does, because when Luis strikes a lot of guys out, his pitch count goes up. It's natural. I don't know if Kirby prefers to strike guys out or not. If he doesn't, he may pitch to more contact. Maybe he doesn't quite hit 170.5 strikeouts. Maybe it's at the 165 mark, but that being said, he puts up a 2.4 ERA. So I'm going to say slight under.
Now, we didn't have innings totals. George is probably going to lead the Mariners in innings this year. Now that he's in year 3, I'd feel pretty confident that he's going to lead the Mariners in innings this year. If he goes 210 on his innings, he's gonna go over just based on volume. So, but if he's at 190 innings again, that's a really close number. How about home runs? Let's go over to the hitter side. Cal Raleigh, according to FanDuel, has a total of 26.5 over or under.
Yeah. Oh, the Kirby projection was FanDuel too, I should mention. But Cal Raleigh FanDuel home runs. 26.5 feels like the bar. So I feel like I'm going over with this. He hit 27 in 2022. Then he led all catchers with 30 in 23. Feels like he should go over on this, especially when he's only more polished than ever before. I'm going over. Yeah,
I'm going to go over too. And he's also going to play a lot this year. Initially when Sebi Zavala signed, the indication was, well, Cal is a real backup catcher now, but peeking at how it's works out offensively, no, Cal's probably gonna be hitting 6 days a week. So yeah, he's going over. And he hit 30 in 500 plate appearances, not even really a full season's worth of plate appearances. 500 is 80%. A full season is usually about 700 ish, give or take. So if he's gonna hit 30 and 500 at bats, then he's probably gonna hit 30 this year as well. So he'll clear that number by a decent amount.
Yeah, I'm with that. There's no reason he shouldn't. Like, again, he plays in a pitcher's park and he still hit 30 bombs. He still led all catchers. He's only getting better. He's only getting more experience. We know he hits the ball out of the ballpark with ease. He should go over on this.
A lot of these numbers are essentially us guessing if the player's going to get hurt or not, which I hope none of them get hurt, to be honest. But that's what I felt like looking at a lot of these Mariners numbers.
Yeah, I mean, that's all props in general. That's not just Mariners. That's just bets in general. If you're going to take player props, you have to bet on them to not get injured.
Unless you're Jonte Porter, in which case you already know you're injured. But anyways, we can talk about that in Speak Your Mind, actually, as we're on the topic of player props.
That's a good one. I was going to say, I had a couple different ideas for Speak Your Mind. We might have to talk about that. Okay, Julio home runs. This is by FanDuel too. 31.5. I know what I'm saying for this, but you?
Over. Yeah, he's going over. So first of all, this is going to be the best version of Julio we've seen. And like when you're in your third season, I mean, you really start maturing as a baseball player. We've seen it in the offseason. We've documented it so much in the offseason. And I think it's going to translate into the season as well. So he's going to combine a full season's worth of at-bats, which he finally got last year, didn't get his rookie year, with a full season of very good to elite production. And that puts you over 31.5 because he has the best power on this team. So it's a pretty easy answer for me.
There's going to be a theme here with a lot of these Julio props. 31.5. Yeah, I'm going over that. He was 20-20 in terms of his home run stolen bases in year one. He was 30-30 in year two. Like we keep saying, can he go 40-40 in year three? I wouldn't be the one to tell him no. 31.5. He stays healthy. Yes, he hit more than that last year. So yes.
What about Julio's hit props at DraftKings? They have it at 168.5.
Same thing. Like I said, there's going to be a theme here. Over. The guy had 180 last year. When again, last year was what many call for Julio Rodriguez a down year. And he had 180 hits in his down year. So how about in a good year for Julio Rodriguez? Over.
It's going to be over unless he turns into Barry Bonds and gets pitched around a lot. But that's unfortunately not going to happen. Not yet for Julio. He's got about 15 years before he earns that kind of respect. How about steals? 32.5.
Over. What I say?
Really?
He did it last year.
I think it's going under. I just don't think he's going to steal as much. I think they're going to protect him. This is the one that
year, though. Like not seriously injured last year, though.
I think they're going to start dialing it back a little bit.
At 23?
I could be wrong, but I'm thinking more like 25. And it's not going to be for a lack of efficiency or a lack of doing. They just don't want him diving headfirst into second base 40 times a year.
I don't know.
40 extra times a year.
Yeah, he had 37 last year. Even if they dial it back a little, couldn't he still go over?
Then that would be like right there, but I'd lean under. I think I'd lean under.
As somebody who thinks he very well might go 40-40 this year, I'm going to say over. So.
Okay. And hey, if he wants to keep stealing bases and he doesn't get hurt, then that's great. But if they're actually concerned that he might sprain his thumb or something, then attempts are going down. Therefore, his number's going down as well.
All right. Fair enough. I think we've gotten to the awards portion of this show, haven't we?
Yeah.
Okay. The one award we're going to talk about, like the big one, is AL MVP. This is per FanDuel. Julio's at plus 1,000. He is tied with Corey Seager and Yordan Alvarez. The guys ahead of him are the two Yankees. It's Aaron Judge and Juan Soto. Man, Julio at plus 1,000 for MVP. You got to like those odds.
You like it, and you just look at like this group that he's stacked with. So Corey Seager's not going to be 100% to start there. Is he starting on the opening day roster, by the way, for the Rangers? Because I know he just got back into Cactus League games like this week.
I think it's going to be close. Regardless,
yeah,
he is injury prone, and he may not start the year healthy. We'll see.
So Corey Seager and Aaron Judge are the two main competitors here, but both have injury issues. And I thought we had a really good conversation on our Tuesday show with Jason Churchill about this. So like Seager and Judge would be, if they're both completely healthy, would probably have a like half step ahead of Julio based off name recognition, market, actually. And Corey Seager was pretty unbelievable last year. So you got to give him that. And Aaron Judge broke a fake record held by the ghost of Roger Maris. But 2 years ago. But Judge is not guaranteed to be healthy. Seager's not guaranteed to be healthy, especially if Judge is going to be playing a lot of center field. Like, that's not something he's gonna hold up well in as he ages into his 30s and he's trying to carry around all that weight. It's not a healthy combination. It's the reason why Giancarlo Stanton only DHs now, because that's how it ages poorly. And then the other two competitors are bat only guys in Yordan Alvarez and Juan Soto. Now I'll say pretty amazing bat only guys, and if they have one of the greatest offensive seasons of all time, they might edge out Julio on like semantics in that. But Julio has the best opportunity here with the combination of health and offensive output, I think, of this entire group this upcoming season. I don't think that's a hot take. I really think, like, if Julio takes that step forward offensively that we all predict he's going to this season, that statement reigns true.
With that Ohtani guy out of the league and into the National League, oh yeah. Like, Yordan Alvarez has put up WRC pluses in the 180s before and has not won the MVP. It takes something truly remarkable for a designated hitter to win the MVP. It can happen, but it's going to take something remarkable. Soto's basically in that same category, like you said. Yes, he plays the field, and he might have a better chance than Yordan with the whole Yankees thing. And just, again, like the amount he walks, and he's a little bit more of a name brand than Yordan is. So maybe Soto has a better chance, but you're right about Julio. To be honest, I don't think Julio has a name brand issue anymore. The Mariners, it's like when most Mariners guys have a name brand issue, I don't think Julio has a problem with that. I think he's the one guy exempt of that category because he is everywhere now. He's a household name.
I will say, though, we do know who votes for the most valuable player award. And there will be more people awake watching Juan Soto and Aaron Judge than there will be watching Julio Rodriguez. Even though it's easy to catch up, we know people don't actually take the effort to watch these kind of things. So
it's true. And to your point about Aaron Judge playing center field too, like the guy was already injured in spring training. I hope he plays a full 162. I hope he's free of injuries all year. But Aaron Judge's track record shows that he has had a hard time staying on the field a lot of the time. So we'll see. If he gets injured, Corey Seager's injured, there is a real gateway that opens up for Julio.
Here's a conversation I think that is actually more fun than the MVP one we just had. The American League Cy Young race this season. These odds are courtesy of DraftKings. So Luis Castillo has the best odds on the Mariners at plus 1,000. He is fifth among American League starters. George Kirby at plus 1,300 is sixth, and Logan Gilbert at plus 2,000 is eighth. The guys in front of Castillo right now are trying not to, like, I don't know if you've actually like examined this list. Cole Reagans is ahead of him. Tariq Skubal, Corbin Burns, Framber, and Gosman. So actually I bump all those back one because I had I miscounted that. Regardless, those are the four guys ahead of Luis Castillo. George is one spot behind Castillo. Gilbert is 3 spots behind Castillo. What would you say your best value pick of that is? What do you think is the best for your money?
Well, first off, I think the only guy that's crazy that's ahead of Luis is Cole Reagans, who was very good last year. But everybody else that's ahead of Luis, I understand.
Yeah.
Best value, dude, I got to be honest, between how high you've been on Logan Gilbert, well, both of us, but you've talked about it a lot on these shows. You and Jason's been very high on Logan Gilbert. We talked about it on Tuesday. He was raving about him. We saw our friend Pitching Ninja, Rob Friedman, put out his Cy Young odds today for sleepers. Logan Gilbert was at the top of his list. Everybody seems to think 2024 is the year Logan Gilbert goes from really good to great. This is the year he takes a jump. This is the year some of his off speed, like that splitter we've talked about, really makes the big difference for him. And you know what? At those 3 odds, give me Logan Gilbert at plus 2,000. 100% give me Logan Gilbert at plus 2,000.
Logan Gilbert, like, Luis Castillo is not twice as good as Logan Gilbert. And that's what that's not a perfect representation of those odds, but they're essentially giving you double the money for betting on Logan Gilbert. Mm-hmm. So yeah, I would do that too. The fact that, we have the 3 of us on Tuesday's show agreed that Logan has the best off-speed pitch of the 3 of them, which is that's a pretty remarkable accomplishment that Logan Gilbert has the best off-speed out of 3 top 10 pitchers in the American League on the same team. So like that on top of like if he actually regains some of that fastball value and he's going to have the durability and he's going to have the control as well where he's not walking guys. If he can grab borrow a little bit of command from George Kirby. I mean, we're like This is a legitimate conversation we'd be having. We're not just being homers here. Like, you guys watched Logan Gilbert pitch last year. 95 to 99 miles an hour with the fastball. The splitter's devastating. The slider has come so far and has actually become a very effective pitch for him. Like, that's what you want in his American League starter. He's got massive extension. He's a giant. He's enormous. We've seen his hands next to Lyle. He could probably like palm Lyle's face if he wanted to. That's how big his hands are. So, like,
you should also go watch our social content from Logan Gilbert, not just because he's very interesting and also a funny guy, but like, I'm 6'1". I'm not trying to like blow my own horn here, but I am 6'1". When you look at me compared to Logan Gilbert, he towers over me, dude. Like, he's huge. And everybody talks about that faces Logan Gilbert. They say it feels like he gets right on top of you. You look at his baseball savant chart, he is always in the 99th and 100th percentile in extension. Like, that is a tough guy already to hit. And if he's going to take a big jump with his stuff this year, like, look out, dude.
Exciting. So now we have some stat categories that I want to ask you who on the Mariners is going to lead in this category. Let's start with the hitters. Who will lead the Mariners in home runs?
Julio.
That's a pretty easy one.
That one's so, yeah. I was going to say, we can kind of rip through these if you want, just because they're
stolen bases.
Yeah. Also Julio.
Yeah. There's honestly not even anyone that close, but yeah, Julio.
Okay, then let's do this. Who's going to be second? Luke Raley?
Is he going to get on base enough? I'd say probably Polanco.
Maybe Polanco.
Does he steal that much? There's not many base stealers on the Mariners team, to be honest.
No, there's not.
The outfielders are the fast guys, but like Julio's the only three of the outfielders who's actually like a true base running threat.
Mm-hmm.
Like for base stealing. Mitch isn't going to steal. Dom's not going to steal. Like, probably Polanco.
Oh, Demo, dude.
Yeah,
he
plays enough. If he might.
Demo can swipe 20 bags.
If he plays enough. Yeah.
So
okay, that's an interesting. I would say Haggerty, but he's not on the big league roster on the IL right now. We hope Sam gets better, but he's not going to be playing to start the season. Okay, doubles.
I had Jorge Polanco for this.
Yeah, I did too. It's gonna be close with him and Julio, but Polanco had a 40 double season in 2019, so that's he's got the gap to gap power. So if he's not going to hit a bunch over the wall, I think Julio's going to hit too many over the wall to rack up those doubles.
Probably. Next one we've got is walks. I'm curious if we'll have the same answer for this.
JP.
Yeah, we're 4 for 4 on this. I also have JP for walks.
Judging that he led the entire league last year, I'm gonna take a safe guess that he'll also lead his team as well. And then strikeouts.
I said Cal. How about you?
Yeah, Cal.
So I want to say by strikeouts, like just strikeouts total, Cal. Strikeout rate, there may be guys higher than Cal Raleigh.
It'll be Rayleigh.
Or, unfortunately, maybe Demo. So, like,
out of the full timers, it will probably be Rayleigh, and then mostly full timers, and then out of the part timers, it'll be Demo.
Yeah.
Congratulations.
Yeah. Well, he's still gonna have a 2020 season with 3 WAR, so it's fine.
It's all right. He has the 271st best swing in baseball.
Well, it doesn't matter if you go 2020 with 3 WAR like he's going to.
That's true. That's true. Doesn't matter how you do it. Just matters you get it done.
It's true. All right, we've got 2 pitching totals on here for you. Who will lead the team in strikeouts?
Luis Castillo.
Okay, good. We went different on this one. I said Logan Gilbert.
Okay.
I mean, neither's a wrong answer, I don't think. I think it can be either of those guys. But
probably will boil down to who pitches more innings.
Yeah, agreed.
Yeah.
It'll be close.
And then innings?
We kind of said it earlier, but George Kirby.
Yeah, it's going to be George Kirby.
Mm-hmm.
Didn't have to think too much about that one.
Yeah. If you guys have listening or watching, if you guys have different predictions for these totals, like drop in the comments, tell us who you have. We want to hear. So
now let's get to the total everyone actually cares about. The win total, the Mariners win total at FanDuel is 87.5. Over or under?
I've talked about it enough this offseason, right? I think they're going to be a 90 to 94 win team. Yes, I'm going over. Despite everything we said at the start of the show for the first 20 minutes talking about payroll and ownership, this is a very good team. Like I tried to talk about earlier, very good team. maybe the best roster they've assembled. If they stay healthy, yes, this team will win 90 to 94 games. Hey, maybe they'll win more.
Yeah, I think I'm a couple wins below you, but still over 87.5. Like 88 is the floor for this current team, given they stay healthy. So
yeah.
Playoffs, DraftKings has them as a favorite to make the playoffs at minus 155. That means more often than not, they will be in the field. I agree with that. You agree with that as well. They look like a playoff team. The roster right now looks like a playoff team. The most important one is they have the 9th best odds to win the World Series at plus 2,000.
Those aren't awful odds. And of the American League teams, you got the Astros ahead of them. You got the Rangers ahead of them. You've got probably a couple NL East teams ahead of them. I want to say.
I don't have the full list. Just wrote down 9.
Yeah,
I guess the Yankees are above them. Orioles are above them.
It seems right.
So, yeah, it's about right.
But 9th, somewhere from 8 to 10 feels about right. I mean, some outlets have had them higher, which is really cool. Like, people are high on the Mariners. We love to see it. I would say 9th is about right.
Yeah. How especially given the comments earlier, that's right about where they want to be for what the preseason odds should be going into the season. But plus 2,000, not going to promise any money if you bet on that. But right. I think Lyle and I agree that is about right. That's fun predictions. I do love doing some predictions.
And as we know, me too. As we know, if they just get in, they didn't get in last year, but if they get in with this rotation can take them anywhere. So just get in.
Yeah. Well said.
These predictions are fun. I know we only kind of do them once a year because that's when predictions are relevant. It's before the season starts. But yeah, these are fun. Glad we did them.
All right, Lyle, let's close out the show with Speak Your Mind. What is on your mind this week?
Well, we touched on it a little bit earlier in the show. Certainly getting the new mic is one. I didn't plan to get it, I guess, last night when I ordered it. But I said, you know what? In terms of wanting good podcast content, sounding uniform with our mics, it's time to get a new mic. I got the new mic. That was a quick little one because we talked about it earlier. Other than that, I mean, you talked about it. I think we got to talk about Jonte Porter. The fact this came out when it did, that's what's on my mind. The fact this came out as Shohei's press conference is going on. Like those are the stars aligning of the sports world right there.
Did he pull like what the Alabama baseball coach, I forget his name, did last year, where they were playing LSU and he knew his starter was going to be out, so he hopped on the phone and called his friend back in Cincinnati to throw an obscene amount of money on LSU money line and got caught? Like, did Jonte actually make these bets himself? Or was he like texting his friends to throw as much money as the books would allow on his props? Also, actually, so let's give some backstory. So I forget exactly which props they were, but the report is that there were some, quote, irregularities with Jonte Porter's props and that he would play like 3 minutes in a game and there would be a shit ton of money on the under of his props and they would all hit. And the sports books are like, oh, the most profitable bet is Jonte Porter under like 4.5 points. In a game, it's like, something's a little fishy here.
Yeah. So they haven't given out a suspension yet. I'm guessing it's going to be pretty lengthy.
Oh, I'm sure they're going to bring the hammer down on this. They can't be having this. There's nothing more important than the integrity of the game, and that's true in every single sport that that is played here in America. Like Calvin Ridley for placing one parlay got a year.
Yeah.
So, true. And like a lot of these guys have been suspended for betting on like other things on team grounds. So if Jonte is really putting money on his own props, then, but then again, can anyone be surprised when this is like, when betting is becoming more and more accessible and it's being promoted and accepted, like all this, like that stuff like this happens? Like, can't be surprised. This is part of the territory. And there are going to be more stories like this that comes out because no matter how many times people get punished for this, people are going to see like the immense monetary opportunity to make something like this happen. And they're going to try it. Even for somebody in the NBA who is making generational wealth, decides to put money on his own props.
It's crazy. It's crazy. I mean, and it's somebody that's, well, he's kind of far down on the bench, right? Like he doesn't play a whole lot, so
still an NBA paycheck.
It's true. Like the guys far down on the bench in the NBA make a lot of money. So I guess that's what I was thinking about. Again, just the timing of that was ridiculous. I even said to all our friends, you included, when that Jonte news dropped, it was like, again, while the Shohei presser was going on, or maybe it just wrapped up. I said, we need a Nick Castellanos home run in one of these exhibition games right now. Like right now, dude. That would have been the best Nick Castellanos home run maybe of all time.
You know, it would have been even funnier if that someone who actually bet on Jonte Porter props was Ipe.
I will say, like, I thought we were going to get a 60-second statement from Shohei. He gave a lot of detail in that statement he gave. And I think we'll see what comes out in the coming months, but it seems like to me, he seems to be free of a lot of the things people were trying to speculate about.
I just kind of wish he answered questions. Like, I know he gave as much detail as possible, but like he did not answer everything. And a lot, like Major League Baseball and the feds will find everything they need to regarding this. Actually, as of today, I don't think they've I don't know if they've reached out to any branch of the government to look into this yet. I'm not totally sure. I think as of today, it's a no. But Major League Baseball will find everything they need to, and so will whoever eventually investigates this. Because like they're going to need some answers, and hopefully we'll get a rundown too once stuff gets published and they find all the details of this case. Because I'm kind of curious, like legitimately, how did they get so many wire transfers through? How did a non-owner of a bank account get that much money out? Like that's pretty remarkable.
So Dan O'Dowd talked about on MLB Network, and I started to hear some other stories saying it's actually not that uncommon in baseball. He was saying for players to build trust with somebody, to manage their funds and manage their money that they really rely on and really put a lot of again, the word trust into, and they get betrayed. Now, this is by far the most public story we've ever heard about it, but it does happen, unfortunately. Sometimes I think it takes guys a long time to notice, is what O'Dowd was saying too. So that sounds like this is what happened. I imagine for anybody out there, like, not to say you would give out your bank account, but if you were to give your bank account for whatever reason to your best friend in the whole world and you had the account numbers, like, I feel like you would trust them to not take money from you. And that's essentially what happened with Shohei here. He trusted his best friend and he got betrayed.
Until you see how many zeros are in the bank account. And you're like,
Yeah.
I wonder if they'll notice. I wonder if we'll notice anything. Probably not, because he probably didn't check it. And this is, in summary, Lyle, to say, check your bank statements. Doesn't matter how much money you have. It's probably a good idea. Once a month, check your bank statements. Make sure you're doing okay. My Speak Your Mind this week, I haven't watched quite as much Star Wars recently, but Bad Batch, even though I know you haven't watched the cartoons really at all, right? You still haven't watched any of the cartoons?
Bad Batch, no. I have watched some of the Clone Wars at least.
So like Bad Batch, they make a whole series about a squad of clones that are at the end of Clone Wars. Anyways, they're in their third season. I thought the first two seasons were actually kind of bad. Wasn't a huge fan of them. A lot of filler episodes, etc. But I've really enjoyed this third season. I think it's very interesting. A lot of little details, and I just love how people have not been a huge fan of how Star Wars has been portrayed in the Disney world. And how, especially the movies leave a bad taste in someone's mouth. But man, I got to say, with some of these shows, the amount of detail they put into some of the stuff that goes on in between all the movies is really remarkable. And it's been very interesting to watch this third season, because I think this is finally when they've really dug into the story of why the Bad Batch series exists. And it's fascinating, and it ties into stuff we saw in The Mandalorian. It ties into stuff we saw in the final 3 movies. All these things sort of work together, and it's just little things here and there. And I think with the full production arm of Disney working on this, I think they've done a really remarkable job, and the characters are fun too. So even though it's for kids, I really enjoy it.
If I just started season 3, could I just start at season 3, or will I not understand a lot of things?
You could probably jump around the first 2 seasons. There are a lot of filler episodes, but you do need to get introduced to the characters a little bit.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
But as long as there's one main character you probably need to be introduced to a little bit, and then there's a few episodes you probably got to jump around to get a little bit more background, and then after that, then I think you get it.
Yeah. All right.
So
Maybe I'll give it a shot. Oh, speaking of TV, hey, we haven't even talked about this off podcast yet. Like House of the Dragon season 2 is coming out.
oh yeah, how did you like that? Like the two different you saw from each perspective.
Wait, elaborate on that.
There's two. Do you see? There's two different trailers. There's the green trailer and the black trailer.
Oh, I only watched one trailer. Okay, maybe there's two.
Now you got to go when we're done with this. You can go on YouTube and watch both of them, so you can get the perspective of each of the sides. Now, I watched too much YouTube. I don't believe I actually know the whole story. I actually don't know how the Dance of the Dragons ends. If you Google it, you can see how the Dance of the Dragons ends. The lore is already well written out by George R.R. Martin, but I don't know exactly. But it's fun to think about like the outcome of what's going to happen this upcoming season. It's going to be intense. Finally, they're not going to be jumping around the whole time. The first season took place over like 15 years.
Mm-hmm.
And like, I hate that 10 episodes in 15 years. No way. It just took away from everything that made Game of Thrones good. Even if the season was good, it still moved a little bit too quickly because they kind of just jumped to the point. But now we finally get like a season taking place within, I don't know, 2 months, a year, however long it takes.
Yeah, it's true. I'm looking forward to it. I'm definitely going to have to go back and rewatch season 1 before I go and watch season 2 because it's been, a year since I watched season 1. So I'm definitely going to go back and rewatch it.
And you need to go back and watch Game of Thrones 2 and find the part where Joffrey's talking about the Dance of the Dragons.
Okay.
And then you're like,
that I can go and watch on YouTube. I thought you were about to tell me I need to go watch through the whole season, the whole series again. Which listen, I loved Game of Thrones, but it is a commitment, man. Like I've watched it through twice, so it's a lot.
Well, I always recommend going back and watching through the whole thing because you'll probably, again, pick up on something else I didn't mention that you missed. But yeah, there's a pretty cool Joffrey moment that I was like, I remember I was sitting, I think it was like the 4th time after I'd watched Dance of the Dragons and he's just talking. I'm like, what did he just say?
Mm-hmm.
That's happened a few times that they just like, even though this stuff hasn't existed, I guess it's existed in books, but not on television. They just throw the little things in Game of Thrones. And I'm like, oh, that's super cool.
All right. Well, at the very least, I can go find the YouTube videos like you were talking about.
Yeah, it should be pretty easy to find.
Yeah. Well, we've got some good TV coming up. We certainly, before that, of all things, have some great baseball coming up. Because, guys, we have made it. It has been a long off season, like we've talked about, but we're here. Baseball's here. Regular season's here. Get fired up for the Mariners. This is going to be a fun year. I'm excited. I know TJ's excited. You guys should all be absolutely firing on all cylinders, ready for this season to start. It's going to be a blast. We can't wait to be out there. We can't wait to see a bunch of you guys out there at the ballpark. Let's get the season rolling. So with that, that'll just about wrap up this edition of the Marine Layer podcast. You guys know the drill. You want to listen to the full form podcast, you can do so wherever you get your audio pods. Make sure to download the episodes. Leave us a 5-star review. Leave a written review. All of it truly, truly helps us out. If you're watching on YouTube, like this episode, like the video, comment on the video, hit the red subscribe button, and then follow us on social media too. We're on Instagram, TikTok, Twitter, and YouTube Shorts. We're always doing a bunch of content at Marine Layer Pod. That's TJ. I'm Lyle. As always, we thank you guys for tuning in. We'll talk to you soon.